Land, the Talmud Torah.
She was the matriarch, is that what they call it? Matriarch. She was a wonderful little lady, and if you needed a little help, she would give it to you. If you're a little short of cash, she would hand it out to you. If you needed food, she was right there to see that you got it.
Men and women were kept separate in Addis Israel Synagogue on 3rd Street in accordance with Orthodox tradition. When she was too old to climb to the balcony where the women were, Ida Cook took her place with the men, nearer to the Ark, the only woman to do so at that time. Ida Cook lived to be near 100. Another mover and shaker was Duluthian Irene Paul, a voice of labor and socialism.
My cousin Irene Paul became very active as sort of spokesperson for the radical community, and anytime when anything involving Russia was in the news, the newspaper would call up Irene to get a statement. What did she think? You know, they'd quote some banker, what some banker said, and then they'd quote, on the other hand, something with Irene, how she looked at it.
Meanwhile, the prosperity continued. Although some businesses collapsed during the Depression, others were born. New restaurants opened up, like the Flame and the Crystal Terrace. The Northland's Jewish population kept rising and rising. But there were worries. Many Northland Jews still had families in the old country, in Europe, in 1940.
Now, when we left Europe in 1921, we left an awful lot of relatives there. We had a lot of relatives there. And every one of them was massacred or burned, sent to the ghetto, you know, to the gas deals, or with pogroms, they knocked them off. We don't have a single relative.
What I remember about Greece the most is the color of the water, the Acropolis, the walks to the Acropolis. I lived very close to the Acropolis, about 2 miles. And we used to walk from my house to the Parthenon.
In 1941, war broke out in Greece when Esther Akos was about 5. Immediately, Athens was turned into a world of hunger and hiding and fear.
One of my most vivid memories is on a Passover night, where we were all sitting around having Seder, and the sirens rang, and we had to drop everything and go to the ditches, and had to come back and finish Seder.
She and her family hid from the Nazis in the home of a non-Jewish widow. Esther Akos would survive the Holocaust. Her mother and her sisters would too, but her father would not. He was caught, sent to Auschwitz, and was one of the millions who would never see their family again. Later after the war, the remains of Esther Akos' family would come to Minnesota. Today, Esther Akos Winthrop lives in Duluth. She tells children her memories of life and death and survival, hoping this chapter of history will never repeat itself. In the late 1940s and 50s, Jewish refugees from Europe were again welcomed into the Northland. The Jews in the area helped out the newly independent state of Israel by shipping clothing and food to that needy country. And although on a whole, America was prosperous, the power of the Northland economy was fading. Slowly but surely, people went away, and the Jews of Duluth, Superior, and the Iron Range, en masse, went as well.
There was nothing here for them. The big openings and opportunities were not in Duluth. They were in Minneapolis, Chicago, New York, and California, and that's where most of them went.
Economic opportunities were less. The steel plant closed. The cement plant closed. A lot of those job opportunities went away. And the Jewish population started drifting away just as the non-Jewish population did.
So what happened? They graduated school, went away to college, never came back. So every family lost their kids.
It was an exodus, and very few of them actually ever came back to practice law, medicine, dentistry, or whatever they went into.
Once they leave, it's very difficult to get them back because the educational, and I'm talking Judaically, the educational opportunity is now gone. The socialization with others who have your belief are gone.
When I started Jefferson School, I was 8 years old, 8 or a little over 8, and the first thing they taught me is Duluth is located at the head of Lake Superior with a population of 120,000 people. 1921. Today, what is it, 80? There you are.
The population became older too. As many Northland Jews passed away, some other Jews left the faith or intermarried. Today, the community numbers just a couple hundred families.
I think change is part of the Jewish means of survival. I think we've survived because we're willing to change. And that Jews are moving to other areas means that Jewish life hopefully is increasing in other areas of the country. I don't think it means that those Jewish communities are dying. I think it means that they're moving.
B'nai Abraham means the sons of Abraham. It was built in 1909.
Many years ago, there were 4 synagogues on Minnesota's Iron Range. Now there is only one. This is the last synagogue left, B'nai Abraham, the most northern synagogue in the state of Minnesota. But it may not survive to see its 100th birthday. The small brick structure on South 5th Street needs a congregation. And the caretakers fear if the synagogue doesn't have that family, it will soon be removed from the Iron Range landscape. Virginia's remaining Jews have trouble gathering a minyan, the 10 men needed for a service.
To conduct a service, you have to have 10 men present. There's only about 4 or 5 Jewish men left in town. Practically everyone has moved away or died.
Virginia's Jews are doing their best to keep the synagogue going. During the High Holy Days, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the Jews' most holy day, the congregation asks men and women as far away as the Twin Cities to come. But on other days, even on Sabbaths, B'nai Abraham is dark and empty. When about 100 Jewish families lived around here, this was the meeting place during Sabbath, during bar mitzvahs and weddings.
I would just tell you that I was named here, which is the same, very much the same as Christian baptism.
But I remember when I came to Virginia to live and practice medicine, at the high holidays, the synagogue was packed.
To the 10, maybe 15 Jews left in Virginia, B'nai Abraham is still the house of God, and they hope the light here won't be lost forever.
I've seen a lot of changes. As a little boy, let's say 4, 5, 6 years old, this place was full. So I'd sit on my father's lap, and after, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, Dad would say, "You're getting too heavy." So I'd go and ask my grandfather who sat in the row, my mother's father who sat in the row in front of us, "Can I sit on your lap?" Well, he was already an older man. No. So I'd go up in the balcony and sit on my mother's lap, and I'd get too heavy for her, so I got kicked around a lot. It was not a strange or uncomfortable place to me.
The Yiddish word for synagogue is shul, from the German school. To Jews, the synagogue is a place of learning and growth, as well as a place of contemplation, God's school. And this is the Third Avenue Shul, the Orthodox synagogue, Addis, Israel. It's been here for almost a century, but like many others, it may not survive much longer.
My father's uncle, a great uncle, Shopsa Karen, who came over with his grandfather, Five Asher, the story I got was took a train ride down to Chicago, where he'd heard of or had some connections with some Jewish people who had blueprints to a synagogue that had existed in Poland. And when he went to Chicago to get those blueprints and came back with those blueprints, which is what this synagogue is modeled after. So apparently, from what I heard, this synagogue is a near replica of a synagogue that had existed in Poland prior to 1900. I'm assuming since World War II it's leveled now. But when I was in Poland, I did go to a number of synagogues, and one of them looked very much like this one.
At the shul's center is an enormous ark that holds the Holy Scrolls, the Torah.
They commissioned Scott Graff Company, which is now out of business, but it was an old-time company in the western part of Duluth. I don't know if it was West End or West Duluth. And Scott Graff had a number of craftsmen who just did carving, wood carving. And so they would carve the figurines and all the different pieces, and they were brought here one at a time and assembled within the building.
Year after year, generation after generation, the 8-foot stained glass window has let the light of the world shine in. Once, when Duluth's Jewish community was predominantly Orthodox, many came here to worship. At one time, 100 families packed its interior.
In those days, strictly men are separated from the women. They changed to having mixed seating, meaning men with women, in 1971, and we've gone back to separate seating just this year, although we don't make the women go up in the balcony. If they want to, they certainly can. We've shrunk. We're down to 60-something memberships. We had maybe 55 for our holiday services. You know, the older ones have passed away.
Addis Israel keeps many memories, memories of people gone, but not forgotten.
In our Torah, which is our Bible, we have a story of Abraham being commanded to sacrifice his son Isaac. Now, of course, it wasn't really intended for him to slaughter his boy, but it was a test of his belief. And as he was about to do it, God stopped him and said, Abraham, you don't have to do this. It was more of a test. But this is a depiction of that event. It was made by needlepoint. We don't know who the author was. It was found in a storeroom of my father's business. But this would be Abraham and Isaac, and here's the angel that comes down to tell Abraham he doesn't have to do this anymore. Shanas means in the year of, in Jerusalem, Tafresh Samek Aleph, and I'd have to actually get a chart and figure out what year that is in English, but I believe it's around 1903.
A special yort site is preserved here from Superior's old Agudas Achim synagogue. A yort site is a memorial for people who've passed away. Nearby is a giant photograph of Addis Israel's past.
At the conclusion of one of our high holidays in 1914, apparently they assembled all the men who were in attendance, or at least a great many of them, and had them go upstairs in the sanctuary and crowd around and take a picture. This would have been in October 1914. Many of the founders of the congregation are here. I talked about my father's great uncle, Shopsa Karen. That's him. The congregation's cantor, who was an institution here many, many years, Canon Braverman, is here. My own personal family is huge. There's my father's uncle, another of my father's uncles, my father's first cousin, my father's first cousin, two of my father's first cousins, another of my father's great uncles. All these are my family. This is our history.
Today, a legacy continues. Twice a week at the Ida Cook Hebrew School in Duluth, students learn Hebrew, religion, and what it means to be a Jew.
It means like you look at the Torah and read, and you sing all these Jewish songs to me. It's about ancestors and how we believe in our own God and how we worship God and how we believe God is someone.
One thing that's really cool is shalom, because it means 3 different words: hello, goodbye, and peace. So it's sort of like
a book you read at the Pesach Seder. What book do we read? Haggadah.
It takes several years of study, but if they work hard enough, the boys will be bar mitzvahed, the girls bat mitzvahed, ceremonies celebrating a coming of age and responsibility. In their secular grade schools now and then, they're bombarded with questions. What's it like being Jewish? What are the high holy days and why aren't you in school? Aren't you sad you don't have a Christmas tree? Like the Jews of northern Minnesota and Wisconsin a century earlier, and their ancestors for thousands of years, these young Jews are proud of what sets them apart.
I like being different because it sets me apart, and I like being my own person, and so it's good.
I like being different. So then I don't like to believe in Santa Claus or anything like that, like the Easter Bunny. I like to believe what Jews believe. Sometimes they ask what I do and stuff, and I don't know, it's kind of weird because they think that I'm like a totally different person. Sometimes like when I first meet them, I know, they think I'm like a totally different person, but I'm not, it's just my religion. When we get like Christmas break, like I'll be like talking about Hanukkah and everybody else will be like, what are you getting for Christmas and stuff. So it's kind of lopsided. I am the only Jewish person in my class.
What's that feel like? What does that... Is it kind of...
Yeah, it's sort of cool.
It's also a blessing to be different, to be lifted up, to be the stranger, and that appears over and over again in the Torah.
As another century begins, a Jewish Northland perseveres, believing in its community, the power of its culture, and God.